A desperate plea. In the shimmering heart of the Eridani Empire, Princess Zora stood on the balcony of her crystal palace, her violet eyes gazing out at the peaceful cityscape before her. The tall, willowy Eridani were a race of scholars and diplomats, their elegant towers reaching towards the nebulous street sky like hopeful fingers. Zora, with her flowing silver hair and shimmering lavender skin, was the beloved face of her people's ideals: wisdom, compassion, and unity. But today, a shadow fell across the tranquil empire. Without warning, the sky darkened as a massive war fleet dropped out of hyperspace, blocking the light of the twin suns. The ships were angular and brutal, bristling with weapons, the unmistakable silhouette of the Zorgans. These reptilian warriors, encased in spiked black armor, were the scourge of the galaxy, known for their aggression and cruelty. Panic gripped the capital as the Zorgon ships opened fire, their lasers cutting through the defenseless city like knives. Crystal towers shattered, raining glittering shards onto the terrified citizens below. The palace shuddered under the onslaught, and Princess Zora stumbled, her heart pounding with fear and disbelief. The Eridani had no military, no weapons. They were utterly unprepared for this unprovoked attack. Amid the chaos, a team of Zorgon shock troopers breached the palace defenses, storming the royal chambers with ruthless efficiency. They were here for one purpose: to capture the princess. Zora tried to flee, but she was quickly surrounded, the hulking warriors looming over her with cruel sneers. She was roughly seized, her slender arms wrenched behind her back as she was dragged towards the waiting Zorgon shuttle. As the shuttle rocketed away from the burning city, Princess Zora could only watch in helpless despair as her world crumbled beneath her. The Zorgans had struck without reason or mercy, shattering the Eridani's peaceful existence in mere moments. Tears streamed down Zora's face as she realized the terrible truth: she was now a prisoner of the most feared race in the galaxy. In the aftermath of the attack, the Eridani Empire lay in ruins, its once gleaming cities now smoldering wrecks. The surviving leaders gathered in the ruined palace, their faces etched with grief and desperation. They knew they stood no chance against the might of the Zorgon war machine. Their only hope was to seek aid from beyond their borders. With heavy hearts, the Eridani composed a distress signal, a plea for help from anyone who would listen. They spoke of the unprovoked Zorgon attack, of the abduction of their beloved Princess Zora. They begged for the assistance of the galactic community, for someone, anyone, to stand against the Zorgon threat. The message was broadcast across the stars, a desperate cry echoing through the void. It reached the ears of the powerful Galactic Council, the governing body of the civilized races, but the council, mired in bureaucracy and politics, hesitated to act. The Zorgans were a formidable foe, and many council members were reluctant to risk their own worlds for the sake of the Eridani. But there was one group who heard the call, one race who understood the threat the Zorgans posed to all free peoples of the galaxy. In the halls of the Human Federation, the distress signal was received with grim determination. The humans, a young and ambitious species, had already proven themselves in battle against the Zorgans. They knew that if the Zorgans were not stopped here, their conquest would only spread. Admiral Jameson, a grizzled veteran of the human-Zorgan wars, knew what had to be done. The Federation could not send an official fleet, not without risking full-scale war. But there were other options, unconventional solutions that could strike at the Zorgans without implicating the Federation itself. Jameson leaned back in his chair, his steel-gray eyes narrowed in thought. He had a plan, a daring gambit that just might work. It would require skill, courage, and no small amount of luck. But if successful, it could not only save Princess Zora, but strike a blow against the Zorgans and their reign of terror. The Admiral straightened, his jaw set with determination. He would need a team, a hand-picked group of the best the Federation had to offer. Not soldiers, but something else: bounty hunters. These rogues and misfits, operating outside the bounds of official channels, were the perfect choice for a mission that demanded unorthodox thinking and a willingness to break the rules. Jameson began compiling a list of candidates, the names of the most skilled and daring bounty hunters known to the Federation. They would be a motley crew, each with their own unique skills and quirks. But united in purpose, they just might be able to pull off the impossible. The distress call had been heard, and the humans would answer. The fate of Princess Zara, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now rested in the hands of this unlikely band of heroes. The stage was set for a desperate rescue mission, a daring gambit against the overwhelming might of the Zorgon Empire. In the depths of Zorgon space, Princess Zara sat in her dark, cramped cell, her spirit battered but unbroken. She did not know what fate awaited her, but she clung to a desperate hope that somewhere out there, someone had heard her people's plea, that even now, a rescue was coming, a light in the darkness to challenge the Zorgon threat. She could only pray that her hope was not misplaced and that her rescuers, whoever they might be, would not come too late. The galaxy's future hung in the balance, and time was running out. Assembling the team. In a dimly lit conference room deep within the Human Federation headquarters, Admiral Jameson stood before a holographic display, his face bathed in the ethereal blue glow. The images of a dozen bounty hunters rotated slowly in the air before him, each one a legend in their own right. These were the men and women he had chosen for the mission, the best of the best. There was Max Riker, the grizzled veteran with a cybernetic arm and a reputation for ruthless efficiency. Beside him, the hologram of Zara Voss, the enigmatic Shen whose mental powers were whispered to border on the supernatural. The Valdez twins, Nico and Nara, inseparable siblings who combined technical genius with acrobatic skill. And then there was Orion Pax, the towering beastmaster whose ability to communicate with and command animals was unparalleled. Jameson's eyes lingered on the final hologram, the wild card in his deck. Sasha Novak, the infamous hacker known in the underworld as Ghost. She was brilliant, unpredictable, and utterly untrusting of authority. Recruiting her would be a challenge, but her skills would be invaluable for infiltrating Zorgon systems. One by one, Jameson sent out the call, his gravelly voice carrying the weight of the mission's importance. Some, like Max and Zara, answered immediately, their sense of duty overriding any personal reservations. Others, like Sasha, required more persuasion, promises of wealth and freedom that even the Admiral was uncertain he could keep. Within a galactic standard week, they began to arrive at the secret rendezvous point, a decommissioned Federation starbase in the Outer Rim. They came in a variety of ships, from Max's battle-scarred gunship to Sasha's sleek, black stealth cruiser. As they disembarked, they eyed each other warily, these disparate individuals who now found themselves thrown together by fate and necessity. In the starbase's cavernous briefing room, Admiral Jameson stood before the assembled bounty hunters, his presence commanding instant attention. He wasted no time with pleasantries, instead launching straight into the heart of the matter. "The Eridani Empire has fallen," he said, his voice echoing in the sudden stillness. "The Zorgons attacked without warning or mercy, laying waste to their cities and capturing Princess Zara. The Eridani have sent out a desperate plea for help, and the Federation has decided to answer that call." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the room, taking in the varied expressions of his chosen team. Some, like Max, nodded grimly, their eyes hardening with determination. Others, like Sasha, seemed more skeptical, their arms crossed and eyebrows raised. "But we cannot act openly," Jameson continued. "To send an official Federation fleet would be to declare war, and we are not yet ready for that confrontation. That is why we have gathered you here today. You are the best of the best, the only ones capable of pulling off a mission of this difficulty." The Admiral activated the holographic display, and an image of Princess Zara sprang to life, her delicate features and striking violet eyes instantly captivating the room. "This is Princess Zara," Jameson said. "Intelligence suggests she is being held on a high-security Zorgon prison ship, deep in the heart of their territory. Your mission is to infiltrate this ship, locate the princess, and bring her back safely." He paused again, letting the weight of the task sink in. "Make no mistake," he said, his voice grave, "this will be the most dangerous mission any of you have ever undertaken. The Zorgans are ruthless and their technology is advanced. Many of you may not return." A heavy silence fell over the room, each bounty hunter grappling with the enormity of what was being asked of them. It was Orion who broke the silence, his deep, rumbling voice filled with a quiet conviction. "The Eridani are a peaceful people," he said. "They do not deserve this fate. If we do not stand against the Zorgans here, who will? I say we take the fight to them, show them that there are still those in this galaxy who will not bow to tyranny." Murmurs of agreement spread through the room, the initial hesitation giving way to a growing sense of resolve. One by one, the bounty hunters nodded, their expressions hardening with determination. Admiral Jameson felt a surge of pride as he looked out at his chosen team. They were a mismatched, unconventional lot, but there was a strength in their diversity, a resilience born of hardship and adversity. Together, they just might be able to pull off the impossible. "Then it's settled," he said, his voice ringing with finality. "You have your mission. Gather your gear and prepare your ships. We leave at dawn. May the stars guide you and may fortune favor the bold." As the bounty hunters filed out of the briefing room, each lost in their own thoughts and preparations, Admiral Jameson allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and the looming specter of war. But in the resolute faces of his team, he saw a glimmer of hope, a chance for a brighter future. The die had been cast, the players assembled. The greatest rescue mission in the history of the galaxy had begun. In the face of overwhelming odds, the indomitable human spirit would be put to the ultimate test. The stage was set for a legend to be born, a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds of camaraderie forged in the crucible of adversity. And so, as the first light of dawn crept over the starbase, the bounty hunters blasted off into the unknown, their ships cutting through the void like avenging angels. The hunt was on, and the Zorgans would soon learn the folly of underestimating the resolve of the human spirit. Behind enemy lines, the vastness of space stretched out before the bounty hunters as they navigated their ships through the treacherous expanse of Zorgan territory. The stars, usually a source of wonder and guidance, now felt cold and foreboding, as if they too were watching with bated breath. Max Riker sat at the helm of his gunship, his cybernetic hand resting lightly on the controls. Beside him, Zara Voss sat cross-legged, her eyes closed in meditation as she reached out with her psychic senses, probing the void for any sign of danger. In the hold of the ship, the Valdez twins worked feverishly, their hands ablur as they modified and enhanced the ship's systems. Nico, the elder by mere minutes, focused on the weapons, coaxing more power and precision from the laser cannons. Nora, her brow furrowed in concentration, rewired the shields, weaving a complex web of energy that would hopefully withstand the Zorgan's assault. Orion Pax stood apart from the others, his massive frame silhouetted against the viewport. His eyes were distant, as if he were communing with some unseen force. At his feet, a sleek black shadowcat paced, its intelligent eyes gleaming in the starlight. This was Lyra, Orion's most trusted companion, a creature bred for stealth and hunting. Sasha Novak was conspicuously absent, having insisted on taking her own ship. The others could only guess at what technological wizardry she was concocting in the solitude of her vessel. As they drew closer to their target, the tension mounted. The prison ship was a fortress, bristling with weapons and shielded by the most advanced technology the Zorgans possessed. Infiltrating it would be no easy feat, even for this skilled band of outsiders. Suddenly, Zara's eyes snapped open, her voice urgent over the comm. "I sense them," she said, her words tight with strain. "Zorgan patrol ships, coming in fast." Max cursed under his breath, his hands flying over the controls as he brought the ship's weapons online. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked. "Nico, Nora, give me everything you've got." The Zorgan ships, sleek and predatory, bore down on them like wolves on the hunt. Laser fire erupted, crisscrossing the void in a deadly web of light. The bounty hunters' ships scattered, each one maneuvering desperately to avoid the onslaught. Max's gunship shuddered as a laser blast grazed its shields, the energy washing over the hull in a cascade of sparks. Nico let out a whoop of triumph as he returned fire, his enhanced cannons punching through the Zorgon ship's defenses. Orion closed his eyes, his mind reaching out to Lyra. "Go," he whispered, his voice a low rumble. "Hunt." In a blur of shadow, Lyra vanished, only to reappear moments later on the hull of the Zorgon ship. With preternatural agility, the Shadow Cat bounded across the ship's surface, its claws finding the weak points in the armor. Within seconds, the ship was venting atmosphere, its systems failing under the onslaught of this unexpected assailant. Sasha's ship, a ghost in the darkness, suddenly decloaked behind the Zorgon patrol, catching them completely off guard. With surgical precision, she targeted their engines, her hacking suite worming its way through their firewalls. In a shower of sparks and a flare of dying engines, the patrol ships began to drift helpless. It was a brief but brutal engagement, a testament to the skill and cunning of the bounty hunters. But they all knew it was only the beginning. The prison ship loomed ahead, a behemoth of metal and malice. With a final burst of speed, they closed the distance, their ships slipping into the docking bays like thieves in the night. As they gathered in the airlock, checking their weapons and stealing their nerves, Max looked around at his team. They were battered and bruised, but the fire in their eyes remained undimmed. "Remember," he said, his voice a low growl, "we're here for the princess. We get in, we get her, and we get out. Anything else is secondary. We stick together, we watch each other's backs. We're not leaving anyone behind. Not this time." There was a weight to those final words, a history of pain and loss that they all understood. In this line of work, you learned quickly that the only thing you could count on was the person next to you. With a final nod, Max hit the release on the airlock, and the team stepped out into the belly of the beast. The corridors of the prison ship stretched out before them, dark and foreboding. Somewhere in this labyrinth of steel and shadow, Princess Zara awaited, her fate and the fate of the galaxy resting in their hands. They moved forward, weapons at the ready, their footsteps echoing in the eerie stillness. The Zorgons knew they were here, and they would be waiting, ready to crush these audacious intruders. But the bounty hunters were ready too, ready to fight, to bleed, to do whatever it took to complete their mission. For in the face of tyranny and oppression, there could be no surrender, no retreat. The only path was forward, into the heart of darkness, where the true metal of the human spirit would be tested. In this crucible of danger and desperation, legends would be forged, and the galaxy would bear witness to the indomitable will of those who dared to stand against the shadows. The rescue. The corridors of the Zorgon prison ship were a labyrinth of shadows and echoes, each turn revealing new horrors, new challenges. The bounty hunters moved as one, their steps measured, their senses heightened. They knew that the slightest misstep could spell disaster, not just for themselves, but for the princess they had come to save. Zara Voss took point, her psychic senses reaching out, probing the darkness for any sign of the princess's presence. It was like trying to find a single star in a sky full of supernovas, but Zara was nothing if not determined. Behind her, Max and Orion formed a wall of muscle and metal, their weapons poised and ready. Sasha and the Valdez twins brought up the rear, their tech skills invaluable in navigating the ship's defenses. Sasha's fingers danced over her wrist computer, her eyes flickering with the reflections of 1,000 lines of code. Nico and Nera worked in perfect sync, one hacking the security systems, the other rewiring power junctions to mask their presence. Suddenly, Zara halted, her hand raised in a silent command. "She's here," she whispered, her voice tight with tension. "I can feel her." The team exchanged glances, a mix of anticipation and dread. They had come so far, fought so hard, but the true test was still ahead. With a nod from Max, Sasha stepped forward, her tools making short work of the lock on the massive door before them. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a cavernous chamber beyond. And there, in the center of the room, suspended in a web of crackling energy fields, was Princess Zara. She was barely recognizable, her once radiant skin now pallid and bruised, her regal gown torn and filthy. But her eyes, those striking violet eyes, still burned with an unquenchable fire. As the bounty hunters entered the room, her gaze found theirs, and in that moment, a flicker of hope kindled amidst the despair. But that hope was short-lived. As they moved towards the princess, the shadows around them stirred, and a dozen Zorgon warriors emerged, their weapons trained on the intruders. At their head stood a figure clad in ornate armor, his reptilian face twisted in a sneer of triumph. It was General Zol, the mastermind behind the invasion of Eridani and the architect of Princess Zora's capture. "Foolish humans," he hissed, his voice dripping with disdain. "You thought you could sneak aboard my ship, steal my prize? You have only delivered yourselves into my hands." Max stepped forward, his rifle leveled at Zol's head. "The only thing we'll be delivering is your head on a platter," he growled. "Let the princess go, and maybe we'll make it quick." Zol laughed, a sound like the scraping of claws on metal. "You are in no position to make demands, human. Drop your weapons, and I may grant you a merciful death." But the bounty hunters had not come this far to surrender. With a roar of defiance, they opened fire, the chamber erupting into a maelstrom of laser blasts and ricocheting plasma. Zol's warriors returned fire, their weapons tearing through the air like angry hornets. In the chaos, Orion and Lyra sprang into action, the Beastmaster and his companion a whirlwind of claws and fury. They tore through the Zorgon ranks, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. Zara and the twins fought back to back, their powers and skills weaving a deadly tapestry of destruction. But it was Max who faced the greatest challenge. Zol was a formidable opponent, his armor shrugging off blasts that would have felled a lesser warrior. They clashed in the center of the chamber, a duel of strength and will, cybernetic fist against plasma blade. For a moment, it seemed that Zol would triumph, his blade finding a chink in Max's armor, drawing a line of fire across his chest. But Max was a veteran of 100 battles, and pain was an old friend. With a roar of rage, he surged forward, his fist clenching around Zol's throat. "This is for the Eridani," he snarled, his grip tightening. "For every life you've taken, every world you've burned." With a final wrenching twist, he snapped the general's neck, the sound echoing through the chamber like a thunderclap. The Zorgon warriors, seeing their leader fall, wavered and then broke, fleeing into the depths of the ship. In the sudden stillness, Max staggered to the energy web, his hands shaking as he worked to free the princess. As the fields flickered and died, Princess Zara fell into his arms, her breath shallow, her eyes fluttering. "You came," she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. "I knew someone would come." Max smiled, a rare light in his battle-hardened face. "We humans have a habit of doing the impossible," he said softly. "Let's get you home." But even as they made their way back to their ships, the bounty hunters knew that their mission was far from over. The Zorgons would not take this defeat lightly, and retribution would be swift and merciless. They had won the battle, but the war, the true war for the fate of the galaxy, was only just beginning. No one left behind. The escape from the Zorgon prison ship was a blur of adrenaline and desperation. The bounty hunters moved as one, their steps pounding against the metal grating, their weapons at the ready. Princess Zara, weak but determined, leaned heavily on Max, her breath coming in ragged gasps. They were almost to the hangar bay, almost to freedom, when the unthinkable happened. From a side corridor, a group of Zorgon soldiers burst forth, their weapons spitting fire. In the chaos, a stray blast struck the youngest of the team, Sarah Novak, sending her sprawling to the ground. Max reacted instantly, his cybernetic arm whipping up to return fire. But the Zorgons were too many, their fire too heavy. They were forced to take cover, huddled behind a bulkhead as the laser blasts sizzled overhead. Sarah lay unmoving, her face pale, her breathing shallow. Zara knelt beside her, her hands glowing with psychic energy as she tried to stem the bleeding. But the wound was severe, and time was running out. Max looked at his team, his eyes hard with determination. "Get the princess to the ship," he ordered, his voice brooking no argument. "I'll get Sarah." Orion started to protest, but Max cut him off. "Go," he rolled. "I'm not leaving anyone behind. Not this time." Reluctantly, the team obeyed, Orion scooping up the princess and carrying her towards the hangar. Max waited until they were out of sight, then took a deep breath, his grip tightening on his rifle. With a roar of defiance, he burst from cover, his weapon blazing. The Zorgans fell back, momentarily startled by the ferocity of his attack. Max didn't hesitate, didn't pause for breath. He charged forward, a one-man army, his cybernetic arm a blur of motion. He reached Sarah's side, gathered her up in his arms. She stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open. "Max," she whispered, her voice faint. "I've got you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "We're going home." But the Zorgans were regrouping, their weapons once again trained on the lone human. Max looked around, desperately searching for a way out. His eyes fell on a nearby power conduit, a plan forming in his mind. With a final burst of speed, he lunged for the conduit, his cybernetic fist smashing into the metal. Sparks flew, and the conduit burst, a wave of energy rippling outwards. The Zorgans, caught in the blast, were flung back, their weapons shorting out, their armor sizzling. Max didn't wait to see if they would recover. With Sarah clutched tightly to his chest, he ran, his legs pumping, his heart pounding. He burst into the hangar bay just as the others were boarding the ship, the princess safely stowed aboard. "Go," he shouted, his voice raw. "Get us out of here." The ship's engines roared to life, the deck vibrating beneath their feet. Max stumbled aboard, Sarah still in his arms, just as the ramp began to rise. Laser blasts pinged off the hull as the Zorgans recovered, their ships already pursuing. But the bounty hunters were ready. Nico and Nara manned the guns, their faces grim with determination. Sasha took the helm, her fingers flying over the controls. Orion and Zara tended to Sarah, their skills in medicine and psychic healing put to the ultimate test. And Max, exhausted and battered, could only watch as the stars blurred into the familiar swirl of hyperspace, the prison ship, and the Zorgans falling away behind them. They had done it. They had achieved the impossible. Princess Zara was safe, and his team, his family, was whole. But even in this moment of triumph, Max knew that the fight was far from over. The Zorgans would come for them, with all the might and fury of a wounded beast. And beyond that, there were other threats, other dangers lurking in the shadows of the galaxy. But for now, in this moment, they were together. They had each other, and that was enough. Max looked around at his team, at the faces that had become so familiar, so dear. They were more than just bounty hunters, more than just colleagues. They were a family, forged in the fires of adversity, bound by ties stronger than blood. And as long as they had each other, Max knew, there was nothing in the universe that could stand against them. The legend of the human bounty hunters, the saviors of the Eridani princess, would spread, inspiring hope in the hearts of the oppressed and fear in the minds of the tyrants. For in the end, that was what it meant to be human. To stand against the darkness, no matter the odds. To fight for what was right, even when all seemed lost. To never leave a friend behind, even in the heart of enemy territory. This was their story, their legacy, and it was only just beginning.